against 2. And the bishop here would have been chosen by Rome, so 6 against 1. It would have been a lot more honest to tell Archbishop Lefebvre, listen, we will not give you a bishop, we will put you under pontifical right, but we will decide what will go on. And the future, in 1988 it was future, and the future was to prove what Archbishop Lefebvre suspected. Because the fraternity of St. Peter was promised a bishop, I can't see a bishop given to the fraternity of St. Peter's yet, and we are almost 10 years after that. The indult masses, like in Providence, Rhode Island, the indult mass, the priest has to give communion in the hand or he's not allowed to celebrate the mass there. Monsignor Perl, who is in charge, the secretary of the commission Ecclesia Dei, he asked the indult people in Vienna, Austria, said, why don't you give communion in the hand? It would make everything so much easier. This is what Archbishop Lefebvre predicted in 1988. Proven in canon law, this emergency caused Rome to found a new organization, the Fraternity of St. Peter. Some of the priests, most of them, by the way, not in disagreement with the consecrations, the episcopal consecrations, that's another one of those tiny little dishonesties, or deviations from truth, or, as you put it in politically correct speak, untruth. Most of them didn't leave the Society of St. Pius X because they were against the episcopal consecrations, but because they wanted to leave anyway. So now they had a new chance. And the Fraternity of St. Peter was founded for the only and exclusive purpose to get people away from the Society of St. Pius X. Ain't that nice? So, an organization like this does not have the blessing of the Holy Spirit because the Church does not do things like this. The Fraternity of St. Peter officially agrees with Vatican II and officially agrees with the present Pope's encyclicals. So they are not Catholics, officially, objectively. They are formally not Catholics. Formally, in their heart, I don't know. I have friends in the Fraternity of St. Peter's who are good priests, but formally, they're not Catholics. Formally, they're in heresy because they sign and affirm officially, formally, objectively, heresy, which means Vatican II. Refer to yesterday's lecture. And the same with the Institute of Christ the King. The Institute of Christ the King, founded by Monsignor Wack, and because I was stupid enough not to see what was going on, and I like to have this on tape because Monsignor Wack never tells anybody about it, the Institute of Christ the King could only be founded because I was the bum who made it possible that he had 4 priests ordained. I'm not going to say here how I did it. And so he was able to start the Institute of Christ the King because now he had 6 priests instead of 2. Unfortunately. Because as much as I like the Institute of Christ the King, as much as I like their priests, and I really like them, one of them is my best friend, Monsignor Wack celebrated with the Pope second Eucharistical prayer, together with Dom Gérard Calvet, the abbot of the Benedictine monastery in France, that he founded to celebrate the Old Rite. They celebrate the 1965 Rite, if you call that the Old Rite, I don't know. And both of them celebrated with the Pope, something... Pardon me. Something which in the old liturgy you had only at episcopal consecrations and in quite a different form of today. They both celebrated with the Pope second Eucharistical prayer. I have seen the picture. So you know what's going on. You cannot say that the Novus Ordo is against divine law and then celebrate it for diplomatical reasons. Either you mistakenly say this is the liturgy of the Church, then you might as well celebrate it, or you say what I say, it's against divine law, and that's the reason why I'm not celebrating it, then you can also not do it for diplomatical reasons. And if they do not say, if the Fraternity of St. Peter, and if the Institute of Christ the King do not say that the Novus Ordo is against divine law, then why do they celebrate the old Mass? Because it's more beautiful? Okay, they're running a museum.
Against divine law. If it was not against divine law, on direct commandment of my bishop, I would have to celebrate it, right? If the Pope tells me that in a Dominican monastery somewhere they don't have a priest left, it's only brothers, and please, Father Hesse, celebrate the Dominican rite for them, I will say, yes, sir. Anytime you want. The Dominican rite, the old Dominican rite, of course. Fine. I have to obey. The reason why I cannot obey the Pope is because I'm bound to the divine law. And the new rite is against the divine law. Therefore, I'm not allowed to celebrate it. I commit a sin if I celebrate it. I did celebrate it. I didn't know. So subjectively, I did not commit a sin. Objectively, it was horrible what I did. I'm ashamed that I didn't find out earlier. I'm glad I didn't have to confess it. So these people are running a museum. Anybody who receives his faculties and his blessings from Ecclesia Dei, except for useful purposes. I got the decree of Ecclesia Dei here. Now this is on tape and they might take it back, but I'm deadly afraid of this. Here's the decree of the Ecclesia Dei Commission that allows me to celebrate Mass privately in the old rite. But sometimes it's useful. I don't believe in this. It's null and void, but sometimes it's useful. And if they want to take it back, let them take it back, okay? I got my travel luggage altar. I have celebrated Mass in hotel rooms. This is the situation we're in. We're back to the catacombs, thanks to Paul VI. And the reason why I mention the Fraternity of St. Peter and the Institute of Christ the King is not to put them down, especially not the members. Monsignor Wack, the founder of the Institute of Christ the King, is a friend of mine for now 18 or 19 years. And some of the priests of the Institute are friends of mine, and some of the priests in the Fraternity of St. Peter are friends of mine. Friendship usually is, especially among men, something that does not necessarily concern religion and politics. The reason why I mention them is to explain to you why I want you, if it is possible, to go to the Masses of St. Pius X. Now, if you happen, I don't know the geographical situation here, if you happen to live around the corner of a chapel of the Institute of Christ the King or the Fraternity of St. Peter, and the chapel of the Society of St. Pius X is 2 hours away, of course you're allowed to go to the, provided it's the old Mass and they don't give communion in the hand there, because like they do in indult Masses, or if you live around the corner of the indult Mass, and they do not commit sacrilege there, you're allowed to go there. But, I warn you, first of all, there's two dangers. First of all, in their sermons, you cannot be sure you will get the doctrine of the Church. Now, with the Society of St. Pius X, even if a sermon there might be incredibly boring, it will never be against the doctrine of the Church. With the indult Mass and the Fraternity of St. Peter, there's a probability that they will tell you the truth, but you don't know. And there's another thing. When you go to communion with the Society of St. Pius X, you definitely know that the little hosts distributed to you were consecrated by one of the priests of the Society of St. Pius X within the old Mass. With the indult Mass, you might get the host that some liberal, hippie 1968 generation priest celebrate in an invalid celebration attempted to consecrate. So they're only cookies, crackers. With the Fraternity of St. Peter, you can go to communion without hesitation. Because if it's their own chapel, if they are not just borrowing the chapel, if they have their own chapel, then it's only them who celebrate there, so the Blessed Sacrament is valid. The famous document De Verbum of 1988, in which the Pope fakes to want the old Mass to be said. The Pope is a liar, because a year after that he said he doesn't like the fact that so many people are still attached to those forms of worship. He meant the old Mass. He said that a year after he issued Ecclesia Dei, telling the bishops that they should give wide and generous permission for the old Mass. That goes to show you the honesty of the man.